So the United States is finally out of Afghanistan. After more than 2,000 service members killed, more than $2.25 trillion spent, and despite the military leaders asking for more time and more troops, President Biden has pulled the trigger and gotten us out. Finally. And what's the reaction? He's been criticized for it. Let's talk about that in today's video.
Our military mission in Afghanistan will conclude on August 31st. The drawdown is proceeding in a secure and orderly way, prioritizing the safety of our troops as they depart. Our military commanders advised me that once I made the decision to end the war, we needed to move swiftly to conduct the main elements of the drawdown. And in this context, speed is safety.
Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. If you share my concerns, maybe you could like this video and subscribe to this channel, maybe even click that little bell that will notify you when I post something new. So you just saw a video of President Biden having to speak in the White House and defend his decision to withdraw American troops from Afghanistan. There were those who critiqued the idea that we had essentially picked up and left the Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night, leaving some equipment behind that really was too heavy for us to take with us. The military leaders, for their part, resisted this decision by President Biden, as they had, by the way, with 3 former presidents. And it really says something about the leadership of President Biden that he was able to stand up to their pressure and say, no, we are withdrawing everybody, end of story, period. What's especially impressive about President Biden's decision is the fact that he understood history. He remembered what had happened in Vietnam after we withdrew partially from there, leaving some troops there, and we had the panicked departure with helicopters picking up Americans and their supporters from the roof of the embassy in Saigon. He wanted to make sure we avoided any such scenario in Afghanistan. And the way to accomplish that is to get everybody out and quickly. Now, President Biden's right about the fact that speed is safety when you're trying to withdraw troops from a war zone, because of the fact that as you withdraw, your force becomes less powerful. Your opponents know this, by the way, and so their reaction is to try to attack when you're at your weakest. So the goal should be to get everybody out as quickly as possible before your opponents have the opportunity to attack you. And that's exactly what we did at the Bagram Air Force Base. Now, there are those who are saying that the Afghan government is likely going to fall, and they might be right. But our experience in Afghanistan should be another example of our inability to use our military to build nations. How many times do we need to learn the same lesson? Whether it be in Iraq or whether it be in Vietnam, again and again we learn the same lesson: our military cannot build nations. Now, interestingly enough, to give George H.W. Bush credit for one thing, when he invaded Kuwait back in 1991, he and his military advisors specifically made the decision that they were not going to invade Iraq, despite the fact that there was actually pressure to do so at the time. The reason they made that decision was they knew that if you invaded Iraq, you would end up getting involved in some kind of quagmire of trying to build up a nation there with people resisting you and killing you from all angles. And amazingly enough, that's exactly what happened when we did invade Iraq. And exactly what happened, by the way, when we invaded Afghanistan. It's worth noting, by the way, that the Afghan invasion was started basically as a mission to capture Osama bin Laden. Once he was captured, we should have said, mission accomplished, see you later. Because the unfortunate reality is, despite $88 billion spent training the military in Afghanistan, and billions more spent on infrastructure and education, none of this matters. The lesson we seem to keep forgetting again and again and again is running their country is ultimately going to be up to the Afghans, not us. Ironically, just as Sean Hannity and other Fox News hosts have been critiquing President Biden for withdrawing our troops from Afghanistan, these are the same guys who defended Donald Trump when first he claimed he was going to withdraw our troops and then never went forward with it. In other words, unlike President Biden, he didn't have the leadership skills to do it. In truth, the people we should be critiquing for the situation in Afghanistan are not President Biden, but are the people who changed our mission from its original mission of catching Osama bin Laden to this mission of building a new nation in Afghanistan. that was a mission that was never going to succeed. I do feel for the troops who served there who might feel that their mission was not successful, but I think that they need to put that aside. They accomplished the mission that the American people set for them. Those missions were a direct reaction to the attack on September 11th of 2001. And those missions included bringing Osama bin Laden to justice, which was accomplished, and making Afghanistan a place where they would not be training al-Qaeda in the future. Now, in terms of Afghanistan not being a place to train al-Qaeda in the future, some might say, well, with the Taliban back in charge, there's no guarantee for that. But I think the Taliban learned a lesson, and it'll be a long time before they decide to do anything that will mess with the United States. They may be happy violating the civil rights of people within Afghanistan, which is a tragedy, by the way, but they're not going to want to do anything to tug at the tail of the world's greatest superpower again. Now, this discussion is especially timely now, given the fact that an assassination of the president in Haiti has led to calls for the United States to go and intervene there to try to build a nation and bring peace to that island country. But do we really want to get into another nation-building exercise? Whenever we position ourselves as the great white saviors of these other countries, it ends up turning into a fiasco. So while we need to make sure that any Americans in Haiti are evacuated safely, beyond that, we need to let the Haitians figure out their problems, not us impose them upon them. Now, I can already hear certain progressives out there arguing that this is something that we should do in terms of intervening. But I remember the days back when many progressives argued for the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan. I was one of those who said, no, wait a minute, we should not be invading Iraq. But yet most progressives probably did support the invasion. I hope finally we have learned our lesson that this type of military action never turns out well. Our military is certainly the best in the world, but what it's good at is accomplishing certain specific tasks that are set for it. This idea of them being able to somehow build a nation out of chaos is something that is not within their purview. So we should thank our troops for accomplishing the goal that was set for them, and we should protect them from being committed to future actions which end up being quagmires like Vietnam, Iraq, and now Afghanistan. So let's get together and praise President Biden for taking the steps to finally get the United States out of this quagmire and putting an end to the losses that simply would have continued on if he'd bended to the wishes of the military leaders the way prior presidents had. Well, if you agree with me or disagree with me, I'd love to hear your comments down below. And if you could like this video and subscribe to this channel, that'd be a huge help. I'll see you in the next video. And in the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.